Hello again, everybody. This is Ed with another episode of Call Me Mr. Broadstreet. So this week I wanted to go ahead and focus on the Disney documentary, which was released in December of last year onto Disney Plus streaming platforms. The documentary entitled If These Walls Could Sing. It's a story about Abbey Road Studios. Now, before I get into that, if everybody's enjoying the content as usual, please just make sure to give a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody for sticking with me, which is always a good thing. That's why I love to do this, love to share my thoughts, my input, everything I come across as far as that. So before I get to the documentary, I'm going to show you a quick item that I picked up recently from eBay. And figure a nice little bonus for folks here. It is the Rupert and the Frog Song Laserdisc. Now, it's smaller than the average size Laserdisc. It's much more close to the size of a 45 record. You can see right here. And I'll go ahead and turn that around. And just to show the back a little bit. And we got the Rupert video along with Seaside Woman right there. And we'll go ahead and give that a second to focus. There we go. So it's about 22 minutes. I got it in fairly good condition. And just to show the Laserdisc itself right here. As you can see, much closer to the size of a 45 record than a regular Laserdisc. We'll go ahead and try to put that back in there as carefully as we can. Just a nice little item, nice little, here, I'll put it over here, nice little Broadstreet connected item. That was the film that was shown prior to Broadstreet, at least when the film was released in the United Kingdom. They got that short little film. It would later go on to be released as part of the music and animation collection for Paul, the DVD, which I believe was 2004, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll make sure to do a proper review of that at some point. But on to our main topic, which is the If These Walls Could Sing Abbey Road documentary on Disney Plus. Now, if you were a longtime fan of Paul, of the Beatles, certainly other folks make their appearance in the documentary. You get Elton John, Nile Rodgers is in the documentary, Cliff Richard is in the documentary. You get some really nice footage in it as well of some of Brian Epstein, some of Cilla Black. Cilla Black was a contemporary of the Beatles, for those not in the know. Brian Epstein, obviously the manager of the Beatles, who died way, way too young, kind of the first, sadly, casualty of the Beatles family. Very young-looking George Martin. It's a shame he couldn't be interviewed for this. Obviously, he passed away a couple of years ago at this point. We miss his class and his wit. Of course, his son Giles does a very good job of kind of filling in, and they have some audio snippets of George Martin's input in the documentary, as well as some audio of George Harrison, little bits of audio of John Lennon. You get Paul and you get certainly Ringo in the documentary itself. But if you're a hardcore fan, you're not really getting a lot of new information. It's really much more of kind of a nostalgia trip. It's certainly very nice to kind of look inside the Abbey Road Studios. They were officially renamed Abbey Road Studios, from my understanding, back in 1976. Prior to that, they were EMI Studios. But the studio was, of course, located on Abbey Road. Formed in 1931, which was, prior to that, was kind of a nice, big 9-bedroom house, according to the documentary. So it was an interesting little tidbit of information. We get Jimmy Page in the documentary. Certainly we learn that he was part of the Goldfinger session. That's the Goldfinger title theme song by Shirley Bassey for the same James Bond film. So Jimmy Page playing acoustic guitar at that point, well before he's the electric guitar shredder that we all come to know and love as part of Led Zeppelin. But with the documentary itself, like I said, it was a really good nostalgia trip. It was nice to see inside the studios. I didn't feel like I learned a lot of new information. They kind of hit the highlights, the greatest hits of Abbey Road, if you will. They go into the fact that during the late 70s and early 80s, it also became known for soundtrack work, such as for the Star Wars and Indiana Jones film series. And they have a part with Nile Rodgers later in the documentary where it's showing him kind of some of the up-and-coming younger stars using the facilities, which is a great acknowledgement. Yes, the stars of the future will be going into Abbey Road. We also get oasis in the documentary kind of, it goes in a very chronological order for the most part with this documentary. It's an hour and a half documentary, and like I said, it glances over kind of the greatest hits, if you will. There's not really quite a lot of new information we get from it. It's certainly nice. I'm grading on a curve here, okay? So when I saw it, it's very much a nostalgia fest. I'm grading it as a B, but again, I'm grading it on a curve. I probably would go with more of a C or a C plus, but you know what? I think a B, only because of the charm of the participants in the documentary itself. I think that goes a long way towards it. I think you'll want to view it probably after the Get Back documentary. That's definitely an A plus. Beatles Anthology, no doubt that's an A plus. If you're looking to get more information, those certainly fill the gaps. This is a lot more like Wingspan in that respect. It's directed by Mary McCartney. Of course, her dad's in it. We were getting to go through the nostalgia trip with Uncle Paul, as it were. And we love Uncle Paul. We love Paul McCartney. The nickname of Uncle Paul. But again, I think this would have been served better realistically with maybe a multi-part series. Maybe do a 2-part series or even a 3-part series. Maybe an hour to an hour and a half each part, where you get to dive a little bit deeper. Maybe there's some stories that haven't been told. Give us a little bit more of the footage inside the studio itself. It's certainly a British landmark. Of course, they've got many nice photos. They've got Studio 2, which the Beatles did their work in. You get Studio 1 as more of the soundtrack film area. You do get some interview with some, certainly some of the folks who have been at Abbey Road for a while, some of the staff, one gentleman in particular, honestly, whose name is escaping me right now. I apologize for that, but, he's kind of one of the equipment managers, kind of showing an old 1960s microphone, which he's repairing, which is nice to see. I think more of that. I think more of dividing up the chapters. I think it's a missed opportunity in some ways to have maybe part 1 being from about 1931 to right before the Beatles were using it, maybe to about 1961. Part 2 could focus on the Beatles years up until maybe the mid to late 70s. And then a part 3 could maybe focus on the soundtrack work from the 1970s and early 1980s up to the present. It also features Roger Waters and David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. They recorded Dark Side of the Moon in that studio as well. So again, very nice to see, but there's definitely more that could have been done with it. And it brings me up to this book, which I'm trying to remember if I've reviewed it before or not. This book right here, Abbey Road. I got this back in my trip in London back in 1999. I know, way back in the Stone Age for some of you viewing this. Kind of showing the back as well. Right here. And yes, the walls still have graffiti like that quite often. And this does a much better job, in my view, of kind of really giving you the inside story of Abbey Road. They certainly probably followed some of this, but again, you're kind of getting, a glance over the surface versus something a bit more substance, a bit more depth to it. So again, grading on a B for nostalgia purposes. Probably closer to a C or a C plus for some fans out there. Overall, I'd say between pick it up next to good would be my assessment on that. So that's really it for this week. So I enjoyed watching it. Will I watch it again? It could be a while. I may want to watch it for some of the footage and things, but again, it's nice to have, but certainly there is a lot more that could have been done, is my main takeaway from this particular documentary. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video, of course. That's it from here, so I hope everybody's doing safe. I know we're coming up very shortly on the 30th anniversary of Off the Ground, as of early February, so definitely look out for that in a very near future episode. That's it. So if everybody's enjoying this, again, just give a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and everybody stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.